Hello, on this video I am joined by Jeremy from Insight Check, another D&D channel which I've watched for a few years now, and here he is. Jeremy, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Yeah, excellent. So your channel, you're chasing 10,000 subs quite strong at the moment.
Yes.
I'm on the opposite tangent of I don't even ask anymore. I'm like, people know how to subscribe, but there's two camps and both seem to work. How close is it now? Are you nearer 8,000?
Yeah, I'm a bit over 7,500, 75.
Mm.
I think it's like 7,530 or
Oh,
something like
God,
that. Like,
what do I mean 8? I meant 80. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're getting moving in the right direction. We're getting towards 10K slowly but surely. But
Yeah, amazing. 10K.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
So all right. So Dungeons and Dragons then.
Yes.
Your personal opinion, what aspects do you think new players need to understand about the game from your voice?
It's a great question. I think for me, I think the most important thing about D&D, like if you're just starting, is to not is to not think too much about it. Really, I think something that kind of often gets overlooked is kind of just the. It's kind of weird to say, but I think just the social aspect and the social element of the game, the fact that you are just playing with friends or a group of people that you have this kind of shared collective interest in, you want to play this game because you want to play a game, and it's not, and there can be other reasons that brought you to the table. You want to live in this and fulfill this like power fantasy, and you want to have this crazy wizard that can do all these amazing things, and like, that's cool, and I think that's awesome. But I never think that, for me at least, that those kind of like those expectations of things that you kind of want to get out to the game should overshadow the actual experience of just being either sat around a table or doing something, playing digitally, and actually just getting to connect with people and just have fun and explore that creativity and make those because I mean, I'm sure like you have these moments in like a D&D game that like 7 years later, someone makes a reference to it and everyone knows what's going on, and it's like, and to me, like, that's like what the game is all about. It's about those kind of like silly inside jokes that were funny 7 years ago but are like still relevant today. And I think like that kind of give and take of like, we're all trying to chase this goal, we're trying to make our characters, we're trying to do this cool thing, we want to maybe play the game in a slightly different way, but doing that in a way that's like um, it's like beneficial to the entire group. It's like, everyone's kind of
Mm.
playing together. There's no one kind of really overshadowing people. And I really think kind of like embracing the idea that this is a social game. I know everyone knows it, but I think it's really easy to forget that, and you kind of get caught up in your own sort of thing.
I know when people get into it or don't know about it, it's like, oh, isn't it that the one with loads of rules? And it's
Yeah,
like, it
yeah,
does have loads of rules, but also it doesn't have any rules almost.
yeah.
That's a weird thing. So what sort of homebrew elements do you use at your table?
That's a good question too. I think I don't use that much homebrew. We My group tends to I don't use that much homebrew. We will change some things up, I guess, so it's technically considered homebrew, but like it's a lot of things that kind of everyone does. So it feels less like homebrew when everyone does it.
I
Like we
know what you
do
mean.
like we do like potions as a bonus action, and like it's an action if you want to like administer it to someone else, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
or we do potions. What do we do? We do potions as a bonus action, and you roll it, or you can use it as an action, and you get the full value of the potion, kind of thing. So I think, again, that's just like a really common rule that a lot of people do. We do the like the crunchy crits rule, where it's like if you crit, you get the full dice
Oh.
value plus the roll, and
Mm.
we do it both ways. So like when I'm playing as the enemies, if I get a crit, it works the same way for me too. So I get that
Yeah.
benefit as well. So it's like, it goes both ways. Um, we're not really like rules lawyers per se. Like, we all kind of have a good grasp and good understanding of the rules, and I think what kind of helps our group is that we have all known each other for a really long time. Like, one of my players is my brother.
Mm.
So I've known him for, and like another of the players is a friend of mine who I've been playing with, who's just been a friend of mine for 30 years. And it's like, we know each other so well that it's like we all kind of just have this understanding of like, no one's really kind of um, trying to question what someone else is doing. We have this like implicit trust that kind of just exists in the group. So whenever we're like having a question about a rule, or someone asks if this can happen, we sort of figure it out, and we'll kind of be like, oh, I know we did this last time, but it doesn't actually work. It doesn't really make sense, so we're going to change it. And we're all generally pretty open to the fact that things can be improvised on the fly, and we can change things up, and no one really feels like super beholden to the rules. So there's probably a lot of like weird random homebrew that I don't even think of as homebrew, because it just kind of pops up in the moment. You know what I mean? It just sort of happens. We make a decision and we just kind of roll with it. But generally speaking, we keep things pretty close to the actual rules text itself.
Yeah, because you get people saying, well, last time you allowed so and so to do that, and you need to kind of remember what rules you laid down. So you didn't say a D100 crit table or
no
that?
No, absolutely not. I think crit tables and crit fumble tables, I think, are like, to me at least, I think are one of the worst like homebrew rules. I feel I know that might be a hot take, but to me, I feel like they bring out the worst in everybody. Like I don't enjoy them. I feel like they also kind of, in a lot of ways, they can, especially crit fumble tables, they can like really disadvantage like the martial characters as well, because they're the people who are going to be rolling to hit way more often, because spellcasters often it's saves, right? So it's
that's a good point.
The target making the save. So if the fact that you're a fighter and you're consistently you might crit way more, maybe you're a champion fighter, you're critting on 19 or maybe even 18, 19, 20, depending on how far you played, and you're a champion fighter and you're critting a lot, you are disproportionately going to be rolling potentially lower on the crit fumble table versus a caster who might never like ever encounter, because they're casting firebolts so rarely. You know what I mean? Especially if you get to higher levels, it happens. But that's to me. I don't like critical fumble tables, so we've never honestly we've never even tried it. We've never tried it. We talked about it, and I was kind of like, I don't really know how I feel about this, and everyone kind of felt on the same page, so we just never did it.
Hey, there's no wrong answers, is there? Your table doesn't like them? Absolutely fine.
Yeah.
So you talked recently about the DC 20 module, and I've also backed that. And favorite things off the top of your head? What excites you about it?
Honestly, the biggest thing I think that excites me, like just straight up, is the amount of I kind of like crunch in games. I like the fact that there's like I like the it's almost like a tactile experience of like, I get to do this and I can move this point here or there, and you can think about things like that. So there's a lot of like really nitty gritty elements, which I enjoy. It's a fun element for me. I don't think I've talked a lot before how I enjoy crunch. I enjoy little things, but I don't enjoy it for like, I don't enjoy crunch for the sake of crunch. But I feel like we're deriving value out of all the different things that you can do. Sure, there might be a lot of points, like there's action points, and there's stamina points, and there's mana points, and there's grit points. Like there's a lot of points in the game, and there's a lot to kind of keep track of. And there's maneuvers with the martial characters, and there's techniques with the martial characters, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of things to follow and to keep track of, and to make sure that you're using and not overusing because you had a limit to use it. But to me, like I enjoy like that kind of element. And it's funny to say that, because like I famously forget to do things all the time at my table, but I still like, I like the existence of it. I find it so fun to kind of do that. So for me, I think I actually posted a video, I released a video about it today, but I really like a lot of the martial inclusions. I love the techniques in the game, or the maneuvers in particular. I think they're amazing. I think they're so cool. I mean, I know we're still in the early stage of the game. They're going to get refined. Things are going to get changed. Like I totally get that, but I love the idea that it's so silly. But to say like, if your player asks you like, "Hey, can I trip this character in D&D?" You'd be like, "No," and it's like, but here you can. And it's just because it's one of the maneuvers that's built into the game. So as hard, and something I mentioned in the video as well, where it's like, as hard as it might be, there's a lot of things to keep track of and to remember. It is approached and done in a way where it feels it doesn't feel overwhelming, because they're just obvious. It's like, can I do this thing that I would expect my fighter could do? Yes. So it's done in a way that feels simplistic. It feels direct. It feels like it actually just makes sense. It's like, can I trip them? Can I knock them back? I'm grappling this character. Can I put them in the way of an attack that's coming my way to block some of that impact? And the answer, more often than not is yes. And I think that is like it's a really like simple design decision that I think really carries a lot of weight and goes so far into like really making the players and the characters feel kind of like connected in this world. It's like, oh, in D&D you can't, there's no, well, you can, but like there is no rule for like grabbing a character and blocking an incoming attack and splitting damage and things like that. Sure, there are certain monsters like cloakers and stuff that can do that. They can have that like split damage, but there's not really like a built-in mechanic for that. So if you want to do that, it's going to be the DM kind of coming up with something and homebrewing something on the spot, and so it's going to look different and it's going to feel different for everyone. But I think those kind of elements that are done, that just kind of, they're obvious things that make sense, so they don't feel overwhelming, and you get to say yes. And I love to say yes as a DM. So for me, that's really cool. And then like the techniques, which are like, they're like the maneuvers, but they're a bit more in depth. They're like the martial equivalent of spells. So there's a lot going on. There's like long paragraphs of text to read, but as like a fighter, you have access to one. So it's like you don't have to remember. There's not so much to remember. It's just, okay, there's one. And then as you level up, you get a second one, and you only top out, I think, at like 4 or 5 or something by the end of the game. So it's like you have all of these different things that you can do that can empower your character to do these amazing things and feel really cool and special, but you don't like it doesn't ever really feel like it kind of gets in the way of the game, if that makes sense.
You like you say, 5e with fighting styles, you think, oh yeah, there's all sorts of different ways to fight.
Yeah.
And then in the game, you're kind of limited. But as you sort of covered in your video, and I did see it earlier, it's a lot of bookkeeping on the one hand, but then a lot of styles of fighting, which fills that problem, but creates the other one of keep track of your stamina points, keep track of now. Yeah, it kind of gives with one hand and takes with the other. Is it not just a different set of problems, And how hard is it getting to remember all these new systems that you want to try? It's a bit of a flood at the moment of mechanics, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's definitely a big challenge. Like, we've been playing D&D for a while, for many years, and we like my group has loved that, and we've been super into it. We've never really had an interest in trying different systems, to be totally honest. It was just it's a game that we play. We all have kids, we all have jobs, we're all busy people, and it's just we never really wanted to just let's dedicate the time to learning another system. Like, it felt D&D just feels like comfort, and I think it feels like that for a lot of people. I don't think that's like I don't think that's a hot take. I think I think D&D I think just feels like comfort for a lot of people, and it is for us. And we enjoy the game for what it is. We know that it has shortcomings. There's things that it could do better. There's things that it does great. Like even just one example, like I talked about in the video today, but I think DC20's current iteration of Initiative is it's a bit awkward and a bit clunky. I don't think that's problematic right now. It's an early stage of development, and I think I'm happy to see that Alan, like the dungeon coach, that he went out to try something different. Like, let's think of something else and throw an idea at the wall and see kind of how it works. And to me, and I don't think I think a lot of people kind of feel the same way that I do, in that it just feels like it's a bit much. It feels a bit too heavy-handed. It's a bit clunky. It's a bit awkward. It's a bit slow. But I respect and I love that he was like, let's just try something different to see how it works. And I feel like that he's probably going to change it, and I'm okay with that. I think that's great. I have no problem with testing things out for iteration. So, but yeah. So to your question though, I kind of go on tangents a lot. But to your question though, about the all the different systems, like for my game, my personal table, I've thought potentially about doing our next campaign as a DC20 game, and we might. I'm still considering it. It obviously will take a lot, because the rest of my group doesn't really. Well, one other member of my party, he does actually like help out a lot with he helps with my channel. He makes my thumbnails and stuff for me now. So that's very helpful. But so he's kind of like sort of into it. He knows a little bit more about what's going on with the other systems. But so we might try DC20, or we might kind of like fold some of the cool things that we like about DC20 kind of into 5e and kind of have like a hybrid game. So going back to your first question, that's going to be like a lot of homebrew, because we're just going to be kind of like mixing things together. So that's a possibility. because we're kind of like winding down our game now, or we're hit 20th level, and we've been like playing for this one campaign has been going for over 4 years now at this point. So
Mm.
we're winding down, and I'm going to be taking a break, thankfully, from DMing for a little bit. But
Right.
as far as like how do we keep track of everything, there's a lot to remember. The ones that I'm focusing on right now obviously are 5e and the 2024 revisions that are coming up. Really excited to see what those are actually going to look like. And then Daggerheart, because I think it's just it's different and it's interesting, and it appeals to me in the sense that like it sounds really intriguing with how different it is. I don't know that it's a game that I would ever be like, we're going to run a campaign in Daggerheart. I would be totally open to running like short, maybe here's like a month long, we'll do like 4 or 5 sessions kind of thing. I think that would be fun. I don't know, at least at the current state where the game is right now, that I'd be open to saying like, let's do a 4-year Daggerheart campaign. I don't know that I feel that. And DC20, I'm like, I think it's really interesting. I think it's really great. It's a lot to kind of keep track of. It's a lot of work. It definitely is a style of game that appeals to me a lot more than Daggerheart does, and it appeals to me potentially even more in a lot of ways, even more than 5e does. But is that something that I want to bring into my group and have everyone kind of have to learn the whole system over again? Because like I said, we all have kids, we all have jobs, we're all busy. Like, do I really want to kind of do all that? I don't know. We'll figure that out, but maybe at some point.
No, because the adventures that DC20 hopefully write for this, that's where I'm interested. Yeah. Will they be written better? Now, which kind of leads me on to my favorite video of yours, which is the D&D books ranked video.
Okay.
Yeah, and I pretty much agreed with everything, especially when you put the DMG really low. I was like, yeah, that book is probably my least used book. Don't get me wrong, sometimes it's very useful, very niche times.
Yep.
But what a crash and burn of a book, really. What a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
We all bought it. Its sales did great, but yeah, it's an awkward book. Whereas I read the PHB all the time, and I'm the dungeon master. So
yeah,
how bizarre is that? And also Spelljammer, you kind of slated.
Yeah,
it was rubbish. It was rubbish.
It was unfortunate. I wanted. I think I even said in the video, I wanted to love it so much. It sounded so cool, and the revival was one of the first like revival ones they did for 5e, because like over the last couple of years they've been bringing back a lot of the old campaign settings.
Yeah,
and
lazy.
It felt a bit lazy, and it didn't land. And I don't know. It was it's unfortunate. It didn't feel great. I was very disappointed with the release of Spelljammer for sure.
What else did you put high? I think you put you basically put Tasha's, Xanathar's, and PHB top, which absolutely agreed.
I think those are all like, they're not only I think they're all like such fundamental books for D&D. I think like I reference those 3 books like all the time. Like I think there's especially I think Xanathar's is so weird because there's so much in there that I think people forget even exists in there. Like the rule, there's so many like of the unique rules for tools and things like that are there. There's a lot of advice for like puzzles and traps and stuff that exists in Xanathar's. There's like treasure guides and stuff. Like there's a lot of great content that exists in Xanathar's guide that's so easy to forget that it's there. But it was such a great book, especially for the time when it came out. It really, to me, I think I said it in the video too. Like that to me felt like that was like D&D like 5.1 or 5.2. It felt like an actual like jump in the game. It felt like we were playing like this is almost a new version of the game. And Tasha's kind of did the same thing. A lot of people kind of hate on like the power that Tasha's brought, which is fair. Like a lot of the subclasses that brought into the game were probably a little bit stronger than some of the old stuff. But again, I think just there was so much clarity and so much additional information and so much that it brought into the game that it just felt like it was just such a good book. And not everything has to be perfect for me to have rated as like an S tier book, but I think like what it tried to do and what it actually did accomplish, I think it was great. I love all 3 of those books, like the PHB, Xanathar's, and Tasha's. Like I think those are easily the best 3 books that have been released in the last decade of 5e.
Yes, you also said the Dragon of Icespire Peak is your favorite, and you sort of pushed that above Lost Minds of Phandelver. So what, in your opinion, makes a good starter set?
That's a great question. That is something
What's in your box?
So if I'm gonna run a starter game for someone that's never played, I am just going to pick up Dragon of Icefire Peak, and that's what I'm gonna run. To me, I think it definitely took some heat in the comments on that section, on that video, for what I said about Lost Mine of Phandelver. And to me, like, I think I've run them both multiple times, and to me, Lost Mine, I think it's more just it's an unfortunate product of its time. The book came out obviously right at the beginning of 5e.
Yeah.
It was the first starter set, and it had a lot of weight on its shoulders. It was like, this is the book that's going to convince D&D veterans to keep playing 5e, but it's also has to be the book to bring them into 5e from older editions, but it's also going to be the book that has to teach new people who've never played Dungeons and Dragons, who have no idea that there was a first, second, third, and fourth edition. It has to teach them at the same time. And I feel like it really struggled to. I think that's a next to impossible task to do, and I think it really kind of struggled to deliver on that. So a lot of the stories, like, I mean, the Goblin Ambush at the beginning is famous for being just an insanely deadly encounter straight off the bat. And so you're gonna, if someone doesn't know it's not hard to TPK a party in the Goblin Ambush. I have almost had it happen, and I was just a little bit of DM benevolence kind of kicked in, and I didn't want to just have my people who've never played D&D just instantly die. And maybe there's a lesson there. Maybe I should have had them die. I don't know. Maybe there's something you can do, but that just didn't feel right at the moment. So I think that there's a lot of just like, do this and then do that and do this and do that. And it felt there was nothing to me that felt very exciting about Lost Mine. It just felt very kind of like, oh, there's this, your friend is gone missing, let's go find him. Okay, and then this person's gone missing, let's go find them. And then this person's gone missing. It just felt kind of mundane. It didn't really feel interesting to me. I never really enjoyed it. But I think Dragon of Icefire Peak was executed in a way that it didn't have the same restraints on it that Lost Mine did. It wasn't trying to do two different things at the same time, because it had the benefit of being 6 years after 5e came out. So it wasn't trying to be that bridge for D&D veterans, but also the game for new people. It was just designed to be the game for new players. And I think there's so many interesting, like, very simple design choices that they made that really kind of sold that. Like, the idea of it having just a quest board in the game. And I know that, like, a quest board is not a novel or not a unique thing, but I think just introducing to the players to the idea of you go to this place in town and here's the quest that you can choose. And then they get a little bit harder each time, but they still get the choice. They can still go back and they can choose to do a different one. And they get to understand like overland travel and exploration in kind of a different way. And they get to see, like, oh, this small kind of like subset of, like, this is what a dungeon kind of looks and feels like, and some of them are really small and some of them are a little bit bigger, and there's this looming threat of the dragon, like Cryovane, and as they roll, the DM rolls a d20, sometimes it will land where they are, and like, and they have this threat of this dragon kind of approaching. And sure, obviously you can do that kind of stuff in Lost Mine. You can just have a dragon that swoops down over, but the point of it was like, this was to be a book for new players who maybe never DM'd before, and like introducing those kind of concepts to them and having it done in a way that's like, it's interesting and it's fun, and all the quests felt mostly meaningfully different. Like, sometimes they were helping someone who's getting attacked by manticores, and sometimes they were exploring like an old, like, a mansion that's been overrun and stuff like that, and sometimes it was like going to get some crazy explosive device from some gnomes. Like, they all felt meaningfully different, so you could approach them in different ways. You can use different kinds of tactics to actually accomplish things. And I think it was a really fun and really clever way to introduce new players to the game without feeling kind of overwhelming, without feeling like it's too much either. And it didn't feel heavy-handed. It felt very like, here's all the tools that you need and you'll be fine. And you are.
Do you think a starter set should go on beyond like 3 levels though? It always
that one went
seems
to 5.
me. Well, yeah. Well, I don't know if I'd have like a full adventure. I think, like, this is your starter set, and it will see you right for a good year or year plus. That's what I'd like, and I'd like a DM screen in every starter set. Surely that's really important, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think did that one come with one? I don't remember. I don't think it did. I
The
don't
the
think
Essentials kit did a paper
did it.
one, and I
Okay.
don't think either of the others did. The Stormwreck Isle or Lost
No, I don't think it
Mines.
did. I don't think it did. I think you're right. But I think that's incidentally. I think that's another thing that Dragon of Icespire Peak did really well is they had the core Dragon of Icespire Peak, which is 5 levels, but then on D&D Beyond, it actually had extensions to it.
It did. I saw that. I didn't know what they
Yeah,
were, but I've seen them.
yeah. So there's and we actually ran through all of them. We did the whole thing. So it goes from 1 to 13, and it does Dragon of
Nice.
Icespire Peak. I think it's called Sleeping Dragon's Wake, Stormlord's Wrath, and Divine Contention. Those are the 4 kind of pieces to it, and they all flow into each other, and they all have the same kind of base kind of storyline that's kind of like it's all like the same themes kind of carry through. It's been a long time since we played through it, but it was really well done, and it was cool. It was kind of fun in a sense that it's like, yeah, sure, this is your 5 level adventure, and it's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. But then you keep going, and they keep a lot of those same elements of they ditch the quest board. There's no more quest board as you go on, but they still kind of they keep it as like you have the foundational elements of the game. You know what the people in the town look like, and you know where things are, and you know how to interact with the world in different and meaningful ways. But you can still kind of progress, and now you have the tools. You kind of have they kind of like slowly like I don't know, they slowly kind of pull off the training wheels as you keep going.
Yeah.
And they make it a little bit less hand-holdy, a little bit less hand-holdy, to the point that the last one is a pretty like epic fight with dragons, and there's this like skill challenges in the thing, as there's like 4 or 5 different factions that are all battling in a town, and there's like a narrative combat element where you have to like discuss like, here, what do you want to do, what are you doing, and like they really like amped it up as it went on, and it was done exceptionally well. Like I'm a huge fan of. I think that's also maybe part of why I disproportionately weight Icespire Peak high, is because of those subsequent adventures that are tacked onto it, that are kind of part of it. Which maybe that's not fair. Maybe I should just isolate it to the single adventure on its own. But
Yeah,
I find it hard to separate them because they're all intertwined. It's all part of the same campaign. And yeah, I think it's done great. I think. I love that adventure. So again, to answer your original question, which is like, what do I think makes a good starter adventure? I think you had a good point. I think just having the tools, giving the player the dice, giving them the screen, having simple ways of introducing mechanics and concepts in foundational quests. You can have someone. You can have an enemy that's trapped on the ground, and then you can explain how melee attacks against a creature that's on the ground come at advantage. You know what I mean? Like you can, and if someone wants to take a bow at them from the back, then oh, that's actually going to be at disadvantage. You can introduce like elements of the game in like an organic way, and like you can teach part of the rules in a way that just kind of flows with the game. And sure, like those types of games are going to be maybe they're going to be a bit handholdy, and they're going to be a bit. But that's kind of the point. Like it's to teach people who've never played the game before. Like here's how you do it. So
yeah. So a question about the final bosses. Do you strictly count down the health points, or do you prefer fudging it so that the fight is epic with memorable moments? And I say that because I flirt with the enemies having infinite health points until they've done their cool things, and then they start to die. Because I've had too many villains crushed, paralyzed, stunned, and to me, it's been a letdown. Where do you stand on that?
I've thought a lot about this, and I've talked about this with friends and in like my Discord and stuff like that. I think there's I don't, for whatever it's worth, like I don't begrudge anyone for doing that, for like holding out to, I want my 4-year-long big bad to do the thing that they wanted to do, and then he can die peacefully after. I have no issue with people wanting to do that. It's not. I've thought a lot about doing that as well. But for me, the way that I run it, my general philosophy is like, if we're playing a game based around decisions and inherent randomness in dice, I want those decisions and inherent randomness to matter. So the way that I think about it is that if, like right now, as I told you before, like we have our 20th level campaign. They're insanely powerful. They have incredible gear. They have all of the skills. No one really like min-maxed the builder. No one's really using an optimized build, but it doesn't really matter. By the time you get to 20th level, you have so much power. You have so many things, and I'm not exactly shy about having them find magic items and things like that. So they have power, and over the course of a 4-year campaign, to me, I'm like, all of these decisions have ultimately culminated in this moment. And if this moment just so happens to work out a decision where things work out, everything is great, they roll amazingly, and they have this plan that they've devised. If it happens to one-shot my big bad, my players get to feel amazing. And I'm okay with that, because to me, big part of my enjoyment is that my group and my players feel engaged, they feel involved, and they feel like their decisions and that their choices mattered and that they influenced the game. I've thought a lot about like the idea of, like you said, like having infinite health and they're doing damage, and then eventually I'll just kind of let them die. But to me, like if we have dice, and the dice decide a lot of things, and I don't fudge anything, because I want to make sure that integrity is kind of like there throughout the game, and I want my players to know that. Like I want them to believe when I say that, like that was the hit that killed them. I want them to know, I want them to truly like believe that all the chip damage that they did over the last few rounds, or all that fireball that came in at just the right time, I want them to believe that had the impact that it did. Not that, I'm just going to let them die now. Yeah. And I think like that's kind of where I stand on it. I really like, I love the idea of making sure that everyone feels empowered to do cool things, and that those cool things will matter, and not that they're going to matter just because I'm going to decide that they're okay to matter now, like, and if someone comes up with something and I totally didn't expect it, and I'm just like, well, shit, my guy's dead now. Yeah. And that's happened. That's absolutely happened. And my big bad gets killed before he even gets to do anything. And to me, that's just part of the game. That's D&D.
Well, I'm running. No, that's not true. I'm doing a series on Vecna, but I'm going to be running Vecna, within the next few modules. And I'm thinking there's no way they're taking out my Vecna easily. He's going to have at least 6 legendary resistances, because I want them to come away going, damn, Vecna is a real force to be reckoned with. Not like we stunned him round 3 and that was that. No, I'm sorry, but in my lore, he has to be absolutely terrifying that they walk away shaken. They might kill him. That's fine, Yeah. At the moment, sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. I think that's cool. I think there's even really like interesting ways that you can do that. That you can have you can give him 6 legendary actions. I have no problem. I've totally done that too as well. I've given characters 6 legendary actions. I've given them like twice the amount of health that they should have had otherwise. But at the same time, I think there's also like you can introduce like other elements into your fight, that can help kind of sell that. You can, if you have this big fight with Vecna, there could be, or with something else. It doesn't have to be Vecna, but whatever it is, you can have something else in the room or adjacent to them or in that kind of general vicinity that's providing additional power, and he's sucking the life force and the energy of that, and it's powering him up. So it makes that your big bad is not the target right now. It's this other entity, this like glowing orb that's buried somewhere that they have to go destroy that, and that kind of buys you time to do the cool things that you want to do with your character, with your big bad. And I think finding cool ways to there are cool and organic ways to ensure that your big bad can still do their big bad things. I think that's pretty cool. I think those are great. Like I have nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I made a decision. I said to the team, I said, we're going to run Strixhaven 1 to whatever, and then we're going to go straight into Witchlight, carrying on these characters. Now I know that Witchlight is 1 to something, but if you think they entered at level 8. And I was like, we're just going to see, it's going to test me as a DM. How can I modify to suit the game? And you're going to be power hungry, the teenagers, it's like, that's what they're like. So it kind of was broken from the start. And they walked over the first, I won't give it away, but bad boss.
Yeah.
And I was like, is that all right for you? You just walked in and smashed it to bits. And they were like, yeah, it was great. So then I thought, well, if we're going to break the game, why don't we have fun? This is the time when I can use the deck of many things just as a when the hell am I going to throw that into a campaign? So we really are going all in, and they actually pulled me up on it. They said, "Wait, what are these cards you're using?" I said, "Oh, it's from the new book." They said, "No, we want the original horrible, DMG version," and they absolutely, the first time they ever like over DM'd me, they were like, "No, Dad, do it properly so that it's a danger." And so I was like, okay, yeah. So the game's really gone off the rails, but it's been a great experience. So yeah, that's not a question. I'm just wanting to share that with you.
I love it. Sometimes the games that go off the rails are the most fun. We have it. One of my players has a deck of many things as well, and I think that it's been pulled from twice, and we also are just using the original one because when he got it, the book hadn't come out yet, so we were just using the original one. And I think there's so much like there's such a the item itself has a presence, and people are always worried about pulling because there are some really bad options in there, and there are some great ones, and this again is part of that whole thing I mentioned before about how I want them to understand like that their decisions and their choices, they matter, and they have power, and that I'm not, if they pull something that kills them or sends them to some demi-plane or whatever, that's going to be what happens. And they're okay with that, and they know that, and they're totally fine with that. And it worked out twice. I forget, they pulled twice, and one of them actually ended up having a very cool it was the one that you're one of the, like, someone becomes your mortal enemy, and they're like sworn to kill you or something like that. And it ended up making for a really fascinating story arc, actually, because I ended up rolling just to decide I made a chart, like a D20 chart of different NPCs and characters in the game, or who's going to be, and I ended up rolling on it, and it worked out having a really just fascinating kind of story arc for one of the characters, and it was really fun. I think incorporating those kind of chaotic random elements into the game that sometimes make things go off the rails, you can have a lot of fun.
yeah it's fun, isn't it, to break an adventure now and again.
Absolutely.
And then have to deal with it, sort of thing. Right, so your channel then, how much work / pleasure goes into the channel, and what are your aims for the channel at the moment?
It's a lot of both. There's definitely a lot of work and a lot of pleasure that goes into the channel. I think, like we were talking about before we started recording, like I genuinely love making these videos. I love being able to write and research and put things down, put thoughts down, and maybe sometimes I'm off. I miss the mark a little bit, but I generally think I have like a reasonable understanding of kind of what people think and people expect, or sometimes I push maybe a boundary, or I don't necessarily, sometimes I might disagree with what the overall sentiment in the community is, but I generally feel like if I'm doing that, I'm at least backing up the way that I do. I think for me, at least, I think the most famous way that I did that, not that my channel is still relatively small, but was the Druid wild shape changes that came with like the 1D&D stuff, like, I don't know, a year and a half ago at this point, talking about like wild shape templates. That got a lot of hate in the community, and I loved it. I thought they were great. I'm very disappointed to see that they shied away from it so quickly, that we never even saw a second iteration of it. But I feel like there was so much value there, and it was value that was added in a way that, again, felt meaningful and important to the game. It didn't just feel like we're holding on to this bit of like archaic way of doing something because it's just the way that we've done it, so we're going to keep doing it. And this felt like a meaningful improvement, and they instead shied away from it. So I feel like, again, like if I'm going to say something, at least I'm going to, even if it's not what people will agree with, I feel like at least I feel comfortable knowing that, like, I believe this and this is why I believe it. So as far as like when it comes to work to pleasure, there's always that sort of balance of, like I said, I have a job, I have a son, and there's a lot. So I try and spend a lot of my kind of evenings like writing and I don't tend to like to record because at nighttime, because like his room is right above my office, so I don't want I don't want to like disturb him when he's sleeping. So I try and like squeeze in like recordings on the weekends or like in the morning before work or something like that. Like it's like I try and squeeze all that kind of stuff in. I take transit a lot for work, so I'll be like writing down ideas like on my phone and like outlines and stuff like that. So I try and like use whatever available time that I have to do stuff. And I mean, and as you know, like as a dad, it's just sometimes you just don't have time.
No.
So it's like you want to do this thing, you got to do this thing, but I just don't have time. You got to spend time with the kids, the family, and you got to do those things because at the end of the day, that's what really matters, right? Those are the important things.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
But for me, like I love doing this. I've really enjoyed getting to connect with people and actually have like meaningful conversations. And I've met so many cool people. It blows my mind that like I have a Discord server that people actually just show up and chat on. Like that's insane to me. Like I never thought that like anything like this would happen. Like, and that kind of stuff is really cool. And so that kind of, I guess, for me, my favorite thing that I'm experiencing right now is the sort of community building aspect of it. I think that's been really, really fun, is actually seeing people that look forward to my videos every week, or the people that, that comment and be like, another great video, like you absolutely nailed it. And people coming into my channel, my Discord and even if they disagree with me, it's about having that conversation about actually like, let's talk like level-headed human beings who just are interested in this game that's ultimately about make-believe, right? And we can just have this conversation about like design philosophies and ideas. And even if we disagree, I think it's interesting and it's fun and it's engaging. So I've been really loving doing that. So that's been like so I guess finding that balance of like when I can do my creation versus spending time with my family and being able to connect with people in the community is obviously, it's a challenging balance to hit, but it's something I've been enjoying doing it. And like, what are my aspirations? You asked that, like, what do I want to do with the channel? Is that something you asked?
Where's the future? Where are you looking?
I mean, like right now, obviously, we mentioned I'm trying to hit the goal of 10K. That's like, I think, a big milestone target for me. I think that'll be incredible if I'm able to. I mean, I don't want to say like, oh, it's inevitable, but I do feel like I'm at a point where I have enough traction that I will hit it. It's just a matter of like, when will I hit it? And I think like that's, I'm hoping to kind of sync that up and time it for it'll kind of feel good. Like I spent so much time and so much effort working on all those 1D&D videos, like every playtest, digging through it and writing. And sometimes I release like 3 videos in a week because I was just trying to stay on top of everything. And like, as we just said, like sometimes it's really hard. I just don't have the time to do it. But I found the time, staying up late, getting up early to like make it happen. And I would love to kind of get that. So 10K is like my big goal, and I think that it'll feel satisfying. That's not going to be like, it doesn't change the world or anything, but as a a part-time creator, it's satisfying to see like some kind of recognition for the work that you do and for everything to the efforts that you put in. And if there's a world where I can eventually turn this into a full-time career, sure, that'd be amazing. Again, I don't expect to be able to do that anytime soon. I would love to be able to do it. I have so many things that I would love to do. There's many more creations, there's videos, there's so many other things that I would love to be able to do, but obviously I'm just limited by time because, again, I have a full-time job that I also do. But so that's like the maybe fingers crossed, long time. We'll see if we ever end up in that position. It'd be incredible if I do, but I'm being beyond grateful, and it would absolutely blow my mind. But we'll see how time treats us all.
Right, so the state of D&D right now, there's obviously a big change coming, and what's your feelings about Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, and 5e as it stands?
Okay, good question. We can take this one at a time. Hasbro, I'm not loving the things that they do, and I think that's a pretty commonly heard sentiment throughout the community. They've obviously, we don't work for the company. We're not in the board meetings, but just like from my perception from the outside is a lot of the decisions seem to be purely short-sighted and like money driven for right now, rather than the long-term growth and benefit of the game and the community as a whole. And that feels like a miss. It feels like a big whiff. sometimes there's they say you have to spend money to make money. Like sometimes you have to invest in the community, and you have to like there's long-term plays, and it doesn't really feel like Hasbro has the long-term play in mind for D&D. I don't think that's the case for Wizards of the Coast. I think the people that are working for Wizards of the Coast, from again just my perception from we've seen so many videos on the D&D channel, you see beyond just Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins, you see so many other people that they brought into the videos recently on their channel where they talk with them. Like you can sense like there is like a different level of a different level of passion and connection for the game. They genuinely seem to actually care about making this an important game that actually changes people's lives and is an important moment for them. They get it's something that they can look forward to every once a week or whenever they play to connect with their friends and family or people across the world. I don't even know, like I mentioned, like my group, we're spread out. Like I live in Canada, and like my one I live in Montreal, which is in Quebec, and then one of my players lives all the way in Calgary, which is like 3,000 kilometers away, and then another player lives in Halifax, which is like 2,000 kilometers in the other direction, and then my brother is a flight attendant, so sometimes he wakes up at 2 a.m. to play from India, and I think it's insane like that we can just still, no matter where we are in the world, that we can have this like let's just all get together to play this game. And I feel, and I get that feeling from a lot of the people that we see at Wizards of the Coast. I really get the feeling that they want this to be a game for people to play and to connect and to actually just enjoy and have fun. So I kind of make that like distinction between the two, and I think it's really important to do those things because ultimately it's not Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins that decided to lay off like 1,400 people last year, right? Like it's not those people, they're not making those decisions, right? It's not them. And so I just, like I said, I don't love a lot of the decisions that Hasbro are making right now. I feel like they are short-sighted, but I feel like the team at Wizards of the Coast genuinely cares, and they're trying to make a game that is important, influential, and impactful to the people that play it. And then when we get to Dungeons and Dragons, I think the game, like I said, we play it. I think I said it earlier, where like my group, we play it knowing its shortcomings. Like there are things that it can do better. There's things that it can do that it does better than others, and we kind of accept the game for what it is. We know what it is, and we know what we expect from it. And with a new rendition of it, a new version of it coming out or an updated, revised coming out in 2024 in a few months, I think I don't think they're. I'm expecting kind of just a better version of the same thing, just quality of life improvements. They're going to make the game just feel better to play. They're not trying to create the world's most in-depth, nitty-gritty, like crunchy game of all time, because I don't think that's what people want or expect from D&D. Like there are other games, and Wizards of the Coast, they know like that other games exist, and if you want to go play some incredibly like crunchy game, you can go play that. That's just that's not the game that they're trying to make. So a lot of people disagree with a lot of the decisions and the way that D&D feels. Every edition, someone always says it's getting worse, it's getting dumbed down, and it's fine. And so, but it's like the game evolves and it grows to meet people where they are and with the game that they're expecting and the game that they want to play. And we're fortunate to live in a time now where we have so many. We are spoiled for choice for games, and if D&D isn't the game for you, that's okay. Go play another game. That's not like I'm not saying like get out of my community, go play another game, but it's like we're so lucky to have like this reality where there's so many choices and so many games that serve different types of players and different types of things that people want to do and play with their friends and their family and all that kind of thing. So explore that. I think like we touched on it before, like how do you keep all these how do we keep all the different games straight? And I think that's so cool that we even have that as a question right now, because like we have this like we're spoiled for all these different games that we can play right now. And I think that's awesome. Different ways to let people explore their creativity and play what they want to play. And if what 2024 D&D brings isn't the game for you, that's okay. Maybe it sucks. Maybe you love D&D and you want to keep playing, but we have options.
On that positive note, I think we should call it a day, because that was a lovely way to end. So, Jeremy of Insight Check, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure for talking to you.
Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed this.